morning started like any other Tuesday at Sterling Tower, the kind of building that made people tilt their heads back just to see the top. Glass windows stretched up into the sky, reflecting clouds and sunlight like a giant mirror. Inside on the 42nd floor, James Richardson sat behind his massive desk, reviewing papers for what felt like the 100th time that morning. James wasn't just any executive. He was the CEO, the man who built Sterling Enterprises from nothing into one of the most successful companies in the city. At 53, he had seen it all, or so he thought. His office was exactly what you'd expect. Expensive furniture, awards lining the shelves, and a view of the city that cost more than most people's houses. Today was important. He needed a new executive assistant, someone who could keep up with his demanding schedule, handle crisis situations, and basically be his right hand in running the company. The previous assistant had moved to another state, and James had been managing alone for 2 months. It was exhausting. His current assistant, Patricia, had scheduled back-to-back interviews all morning. James had already seen 4 candidates. All of them had impressive resumes, fancy degrees from expensive schools, and years of experience. But something was missing. They all seemed so rehearsed, so perfect on paper, but lacking something real. He couldn't quite put his finger on it. "Mr. Richardson, your next appointment is here." Patricia's voice came through the intercom. James glanced at his watch. 10:30, right on time. He appreciated punctuality. "Send them in," he replied, straightening his tie and putting on his professional face. The door opened and James looked up, ready to shake hands with another polished candidate in a business suit. Instead, his eyes went wide and his hand froze halfway across the desk. Standing in the doorway was a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 9 or 10 years old. She wore a school uniform, a white shirt that was a bit wrinkled, and a navy blue skirt. Her backpack hung from one shoulder, decorated with colorful pins and keychains. Her hair was pulled back in a slightly messy ponytail, like she'd done it herself in a hurry. In her small hands, she clutched a manila folder that looked too big for her. James blinked, wondering if he was seeing things. Patricia appeared behind the girl, looking just as confused and concerned. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Richardson," Patricia started, but the little girl stepped forward before anyone could say anything else. "Good morning, sir," the girl said, her voice clear but a little nervous. "My name is Lily Chen. I'm here about my mom's interview." James sat back in his chair, completely thrown off balance. In 30 years of business, he'd dealt with surprise negotiations, unexpected crises, and dramatic board meetings. But a child walking into a job interview? This was a first. "I'm sorry, sweetheart," James said, trying to sound gentle but professional. "I think there's been some kind of mistake. This is a job interview for adults. Are you lost? Where's your mother?" Lily shook her head, gripping the folder tighter. "No, sir, I'm not lost. My mom was supposed to be here. Rachel Chen? She had an appointment at 10:30. But she's really sick today. She has a high fever, and she's been throwing up since last night. She tried to get up and come anyway, but she could barely stand." The girl's voice wavered slightly, but she kept going, standing up straighter like she was trying to look more grown up. "Mom kept saying she couldn't miss this interview. She said it was too important. But I told her she was too sick to leave the house. So I came instead, to explain. And to ask if maybe you could reschedule? Please." James felt something shift in his chest. He'd been preparing to politely dismiss whoever walked through that door if they weren't right for the job. But this wasn't in any business manual he'd ever read. Patricia still stood by the door, uncertain. "Should I call security?" she whispered. "No," James said quietly, then louder. "No, that's fine, Patricia. Give us a moment." Patricia hesitated, then nodded and closed the door, leaving James alone with this unexpected visitor. "Please sit down," James said, gesturing to one of the leather chairs across from his desk. Lily walked forward carefully, like she was in a museum and afraid to touch anything. She climbed into the chair, which was so big her feet didn't quite touch the floor. She placed the folder on her lap and folded her hands on top of it. James didn't know where to start. "Lily, was it?" "Yes, sir. Lily Chen. I'm 9 years old. I'll be 10 next month." "Well, Lily, that was very responsible of you to come here and explain the situation. But how did you even get here? This building is downtown, and I'm guessing you live somewhere else." Lily nodded. "Yes, sir. We live in Riverside. I took the number 42 bus to Central Station. then transferred to the number 17. It took about an hour, maybe a little more. James felt his jaw tighten. You took 2 buses by yourself? Does your mother know you're here? Lily looked down at her hands. Not exactly. She was sleeping when I left. The fever medicine made her really drowsy, but she kept waking up and worrying about missing this interview. She kept saying, I can't miss this chance. I can't mess this up. So I thought if I came and explained and asked nicely, maybe you'd understand and give her another chance. There was something about the way she said it, so earnest and serious that made James's irritation fade. He'd been angry for a split second. What kind of mother lets a 9-year-old travel across the city alone? But looking at this little girl, he realized it wasn't neglect. It was desperation on the mother's part and incredible courage on the daughter's. That was brave of you, James said carefully, but also dangerous. You know that, right? You shouldn't travel around the city by yourself. I know, Lily said quickly. Mom always tells me that. But this was an emergency, and I'm very careful. I sat near the driver both times and didn't talk to strangers. James rubbed his temples. This was not how he expected his Tuesday to go. Okay, well, you're here now. And you're safe. That's what matters. He looked at the folder in Lily's lap. Is that your mother's resume? Lily's face brightened a little. Yes, sir. She opened the folder and carefully pulled out several papers. She stood up and placed them on James's desk, spreading them out like she'd practiced this. This is her resume. She has 10 years of experience in office management and administration. She's really good with computers and organizing things. She can type 95 words per minute. I tested her last week. James picked up the resume and he couldn't help but smile. In the margins, in what was clearly a child's handwriting with colorful pens, were little notes. Very organized. One note said with a star, perfect attendance at her last 3 jobs. Another one read with multiple exclamation points. Did you write these notes? James asked. Lily nodded, looking a bit embarrassed. Yes, sir. I was helping Mom prepare. She's been so nervous about this interview. She really wants this job. James scanned the actual resume. Rachel Chen. Bachelor's degree in business administration. Experience at several firms, mostly administrative and management roles. References attached. On paper, she was qualified, though not the most experienced candidate he'd seen today. Your mother has good qualifications, James said. But can I ask you something, Lily? Why is this job so important to her? Lily's expression changed, becoming more serious. Because we need it, sir. We're not doing very well right now. We live in a small apartment and Mom works 2 jobs. She works at an office during the day and then she works at Danny's Diner 3 nights a week. She's always tired. The girl's voice got quieter. My dad died 2 years ago. Car accident. After that, everything got hard. We had to move to a smaller place. Mom had to work more. But she never complains. She just keeps going. She's the strongest person I know. James felt a lump forming in his throat. He'd been in meetings with hardened business people who didn't show half the maturity this little girl was showing right now. Mom saw your job posting 3 weeks ago, Lily continued. She got so excited. She said this could be the one that changes things for us. The salary is good and it has benefits, real benefits with health insurance and everything. She's been preparing every single night after I go to bed. I can hear her practicing interview questions in the bathroom. Lily looked directly at James, her eyes pleading but dignified. She deserves this chance, sir. She works harder than anyone I know. She's smart and organized and never gives up. And she's a really good mom. She makes sure I do my homework every night even when she's exhausted. She comes to my school events even when she has to leave work early. She's amazing. James set down the resume and leaned back in his chair. He'd interviewed dozens of people over the years, heard countless pitches about why someone deserved a job. But he'd never heard anything quite like this. A 9-year-old girl who rode 2 buses across the city by herself, sitting in his office advocating for her mother with more passion and sincerity than any professional recruiter. You really love your mom, don't you? James said softly. More than anything, Lily said without hesitation. She's all I have, and I'm all she has. We take care of each other. James stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. People rushing around like ants, everyone chasing something, success, money, happiness. He'd been at the top for so long he sometimes forgot what it was like to struggle, to really need something. He turned back to Lily. I'll tell you what. I'll reschedule your mother's interview. Tell her to call my office when she's feeling better and we'll set up a new time. Lily's face lit up like a Christmas tree. Really? Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Mom is going to be so relieved. But, James added, holding up a finger, I have one condition. Lily's smile faded slightly, worried. What condition? I'm driving you home. Right now. You're not taking 2 buses back by yourself. Lily started to protest. Oh, no, sir, you don't have to do that. You're busy. You have more interviews. They can wait, James said firmly. He pressed the intercom button. Patricia, cancel my remaining morning appointments. Something important has come up. But, sir, Patricia's confused voice came through. Please, Patricia, reschedule them for tomorrow. Yes, sir. James grabbed his suit jacket from the back of his chair and put it on. Come on, Lily, let's get you home safely. And I'd like to check on your mother. Make sure she's okay. Lily clutched her folder and followed James out of the office. As they walked through the hallways toward the elevator, employees stared at the unusual sight. Their serious CEO walking alongside a small girl in a school uniform. In the parking garage, Lily's eyes went wide when James led her to a sleek black car. Wow, she whispered. This is really fancy. It gets me where I need to go, James said with a small smile, opening the passenger door for her. Buckle up. As they pulled out of the garage and into the city traffic, James glanced over at Lily, who was looking out the window with her folder still clutched in her lap. You know, James said, what you did today took a lot of courage. Most adults wouldn't have done that. Lily looked at him. I was scared. But I was more scared of Mom losing this chance. She's been disappointed so many times. I just wanted to help. And in that moment, driving through the city streets with this brave little girl beside him, James realized that maybe, just maybe, he'd already found exactly what he'd been looking for all morning. Not in the person sitting in his office, but in what she represented. Real loyalty, genuine care, and the kind of determination that came from actual hardship. Not rehearsed interview answers. He didn't know it yet. But this unexpected meeting was about to change everything. The car ride through the city was quiet at first. Lily sat in the passenger seat, her backpack on her lap, watching the buildings slide by through the window. James kept his eyes on the road, but his mind was racing with thoughts he couldn't quite organize. Turn left at the next light, Lily said softly, pointing ahead. Then we take the highway for about 15 minutes. James nodded and followed her directions. The silence felt heavy, so he decided to break it. So, Lily, tell me about school. What grade are you in? 4th grade, Lily answered, perking up a little. At Riverside Elementary. It's okay, I guess. I like my teacher, Mrs. Patterson. She's really nice. What's your favorite subject? Math, Lily said without hesitation. I know most kids say they hate math, but I think it's like solving puzzles. And science, too. We're learning about the solar system right now. Did you know that Saturn's rings are made of ice and rock? And that you could fit over 1,000 Earths inside Jupiter? James smiled. I did know that, actually. But I'm impressed that you do. You must be a good student. Lily shrugged modestly. I try. Mom says education is the most important thing. She says it's the one thing nobody can ever take away from you. That's why she makes sure I do all my homework even when she's really tired from work. Your mom sounds like a smart woman. She is, Lily said with pride in her voice. She helps me with my homework every night. Well, except for math. I'm actually better at math than she is now. But don't tell her I said that. James chuckled. Your secret's safe with me. They merged onto the highway, and the tall buildings of downtown began to fade behind them. The neighborhoods changed gradually, from shiny office towers to older apartment buildings and small shops. Can I ask you something, Mr. Richardson? Lily said after a moment. Of course. Call me James. Okay, Mr. James. Lily twisted in her seat to look at him. Do you like being a CEO? It seems like it would be really stressful. James thought about that for a moment. It is stressful. Very stressful, actually. But yes, I do like it. I like solving problems and building something successful. I like helping the company grow and seeing people do well in their jobs. Do you have kids? The question caught James off guard. His hands tightened slightly on the steering wheel. No, he said quietly. No, I don't. I was married once, a long time ago, but we never had children. We were both too focused on our careers, and then we got divorced. Oh, I'm sorry. It's okay. It was a long time ago. We wanted different things. Do you ever get lonely? Lily asked. and there was no judgment in her voice, just genuine curiosity. James glanced at her, surprised by how perceptive she was. "Sometimes," he admitted. "Yes, sometimes I do. The office can feel empty even when it's full of people." Lily nodded like she understood something profound. "Mom gets lonely too. I can tell. Sometimes late at night when she thinks I'm asleep, I can hear her crying in her room. I think she misses Dad a lot." James felt his throat tighten again. "I'm sure she does. Losing someone you love is one of the hardest things in life." "Yeah," Lily said softly. "I miss him too. He used to take me to the park every Sunday. We'd get ice cream and feed the ducks. He made really good pancakes too. He'd make them into funny shapes like dinosaurs or butterflies. He sounds like he was a great dad. He was the best." Lily's voice was thick with emotion. "After he died, everything changed. We had to sell our house. Mom cried a lot. She tried to hide it, but I knew. And then she had to start working all the time. I barely see her anymore except in the mornings and some evenings. That must be hard on you." "It is. But I understand why she does it. We need money for rent and food and my school supplies, and Mom is saving up for my college fund. She puts a little bit away every month even though we don't have much. She says I'm going to go to a good college someday and become something amazing." James felt something crack inside his chest. Here he was, a millionaire who could buy anything he wanted, and this little girl was talking about her mother scraping together pennies for a future that was years away. It put his own life in perspective in a way that made him uncomfortable. "Take the next exit," Lily said, pointing to the sign. "Then it's about 5 more minutes." They exited the highway and entered the Riverside neighborhood. It was clearly a working-class area. Small apartment buildings lined the streets, some with laundry hanging from balconies. Corner stores with faded signs advertised cheap prices on groceries. A group of teenagers sat on a stoop talking and laughing. An older man pushed a shopping cart full of recycling. "It's not fancy," Lily said, as if she could read James's thoughts. "But it's home. Most of our neighbors are really nice. Mrs. Lopez from downstairs watches me sometimes when Mom has to work late. And Mr. Chen, no relation, he owns the corner store and always gives me a free piece of candy when I come in." "It seems like a good community," James said. And he meant it. "Turn right here," Lily instructed. "Then it's the 3rd building on the left. The one with the green door." James pulled up to a modest 3-story apartment building. The paint was peeling in some places and the front steps needed repair, but it was clean. Someone had planted flowers in a small garden bed near the entrance. "We're on the 2nd floor," Lily said, unbuckling her seatbelt. "Apartment 2B. James parked the car and followed Lily up the narrow staircase. The hallway smelled like someone was cooking, something with garlic and spices. Lily pulled a key from her backpack and opened the door to her apartment. "Mom?" she called out. "Mom, I'm home. And I brought someone." The apartment was small but incredibly neat. A tiny living room with a worn couch and a television on a simple stand. A kitchen barely big enough for one person. A narrow hallway that James assumed led to bedrooms. But despite its size, there was something warm about the place. Pictures covered the walls. Photos of Lily at various ages, school artwork, a family portrait that must have been taken before the father died. "Lily?" A weak voice came from down the hallway. "Is that you? Baby, where did you go? I woke up and you were gone and I was so worried." A woman appeared in the hallway, leaning against the wall for support. She was wearing pajamas and a robe, her face pale and shiny with fever sweat. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun and she looked exhausted. But even in this state, James could see she was probably pretty when she was healthy. Kind eyes and a gentle face. When Rachel saw James standing in her living room in his expensive suit, her eyes went wide with horror. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Oh my God, no." "Lily, what did you do?" "Mom, it's okay." Lily started, but Rachel interrupted her. "Mr. Richardson," Rachel said, recognizing him from the company website she'd studied obsessively. "I'm so sorry. I don't understand what's happening. Why are you here?" "Did Lily, oh God, did she go to the interview?" Rachel swayed slightly and James quickly stepped forward, concerned she might fall. "Please sit down," James said gently. "You should be in bed. You're clearly very sick." "I'm so sorry," Rachel said again, moving unsteadily to the couch and sinking into it. "I'm so embarrassed. This is completely unprofessional. I can explain." "Mom, just listen," Lily said, sitting next to her mother and taking her hand. You were so sick this morning and you kept worrying about the interview. So I went to explain to Mr. Richardson and ask if he could reschedule. And he said yes. And then he drove me home to make sure I was safe. Rachel looked at James, then at Lily, then back at James. Tears started forming in her eyes. You went to his office? By yourself? Lily, you could have gotten hurt. You know you're not supposed to go that far alone. I know, Mom, but you were so worried. You kept saying you couldn't miss this chance. Rachel covered her face with her hands. I'm sorry, she said, her voice muffled. I'm so sorry, Mr. Richardson. This is completely inappropriate. I understand if you don't want to reschedule. I've wasted your time and put you in an awkward position. Actually, James said, sitting in the chair across from them. Lily was very impressive. She came to my office, explained the situation professionally, and advocated for you better than most lawyers I know. Rachel lowered her hands, looking at him with surprise. She did? She did. She brought your resume, told me about your qualifications, and made a very convincing case for why I should give you another chance. James smiled at Lily. She's quite remarkable. Rachel looked at her daughter with a mixture of pride and worry. She's the best thing in my life. But she shouldn't have done that. It was dangerous. I agree it was dangerous, James said, which is why I wanted to bring her home myself and check on you. How are you feeling? Like I've been hit by a truck, Rachel admitted. I think it's the flu. It came on suddenly last night. I was fine yesterday, and then by midnight I was burning up. Have you seen a doctor? Rachel laughed weakly. I can't afford to see a doctor for the flu. I'll just rest and drink fluids. It'll pass in a few days, James frowned. In his world, if you got sick, you went to the doctor. You didn't think twice about it. But he was starting to understand that Rachel's world worked very differently. Can I get you anything? James asked. Water, medicine? We have everything we need, Rachel said, though James noticed her glance toward the kitchen with concern. He wondered if that was true or if she was just too proud to accept help. Lily stood up. I'll get you water, Mom, and your medicine. You need to take more fever reducer. As Lily disappeared into the kitchen, Rachel looked at James with exhausted eyes. I really am sorry about all this. I've been preparing for that interview for weeks. I studied your company inside and out. I practiced answers to every possible question. This job would change everything for us. Lily told me a bit about your situation, James said carefully. I'm very sorry about your husband. Rachel's expression clouded. Thank you. It's been 2 years, but some days it feels like yesterday. He was a good man. A construction worker. The accident was so sudden. A equipment malfunction on the job site. 1 minute he was there and the next, she trailed off. I can't imagine how difficult that must have been. The hardest part was watching Lily lose her father. She was only 7. She's had to grow up so fast. Rachel's voice cracked. She shouldn't have to worry about things like job interviews and money. She should just be a kid. Lily returned with a glass of water and 2 pills. Here, Mom, take these. Rachel took the medicine obediently, and Lily sat back down beside her, leaning against her mother's side despite the fever. James watched them together and saw something that made his chest ache. This was what family looked like, real family. Not the distant professional relationships he'd maintained most of his life. Not the networking dinners and business lunches. This was genuine love and care. The kind that made a sick mother worry about an interview and a young daughter brave enough to face a stranger in a skyscraper. I should let you rest, James said, standing up. But I meant what I said to Lily. Call my office when you're feeling better and we'll reschedule the interview. Really? Rachel said, hope flickering in her tired eyes. You'd still consider me after all this chaos? I would. In fact, I'm more interested now than I was before. I don't understand. James looked at Lily, then back at Rachel. Your daughter showed me something today that none of my other candidates could. What it means to really care about something. To be loyal and brave and to fight for the people you love. Those are qualities I can't teach. And if she learned them from you, then I think you might be exactly the kind of person I need on my team. Rachel's eyes filled with tears again. Thank you, she whispered. You have no idea what this means to us. I think I'm starting to understand, James said softly. He walked to the door and Lily followed him. Thank you for driving me home, Mr. James, she said, and for not being mad at Mom. Thank you for being brave today, James replied. Take care of your mother, okay? I always do. As James walked down the stairs and back to his car, he couldn't stop thinking about what he'd just witnessed. The tiny apartment with its worn furniture and careful decorations. A sick mother pushing herself to the limit. A daughter who rode across the city because she couldn't bear to see her mother disappointed again. He sat in his car for a moment before starting the engine, looking up at the building. Through a window on the second floor, he could see Lily's silhouette as she pulled the curtains closed. James drove back to his office, but his mind wasn't on the meetings he'd missed or the work piling up on his desk. It was on a 9-year-old girl with a wrinkled school uniform and her mother who worked 2 jobs and still put money away for college. And for the first time in years, James Richardson felt like maybe he'd been looking for the wrong things in life. Maybe success wasn't just about profit margins and quarterly reports. Maybe it was about something deeper, something more human, something he'd lost sight of somewhere along the way. But as he pulled into his parking garage and rode the elevator back up to the 42nd floor, a new feeling settled in his chest. Determination. He didn't know exactly what he was going to do yet, but he knew one thing for certain. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. James couldn't concentrate for the rest of the day. He sat through 2 conference calls without really hearing what anyone said. He signed documents without reading them as carefully as he usually did. His mind kept wandering back to that small apartment, to the little girl with the backpack full of pins, to the mother who looked like she could barely stand but still tried to apologize for something that wasn't even her fault. By 5 o'clock, he'd made a decision. He buzzed Patricia on the intercom. "Patricia, can you come in here for a moment?" His assistant appeared in the doorway, notepad in hand like always. "Yes, Mr. Richardson. I need you to do something for me. It's going to sound unusual, but I need you to trust me on this." Patricia raised an eyebrow. In the 12 years she'd worked for him, James had never said anything quite like that. "Of course. What do you need?" "I need you to run a complete background check on Rachel Chen. She's one of the candidates who was supposed to interview today. I need to see everything. Employment history, references, credit check, education verification, everything. Is there a problem with her application?" "No problem. I just want to be thorough." "And Patricia? I need this done quietly. Don't go through the usual HR channels. Use that private investigation firm we've worked with before." Patricia made notes, though James could see the curiosity in her eyes. "I'll have it by tomorrow afternoon." "Anything else?" "Yes, call all the references on her resume personally. I want to know what kind of employee she was, what kind of person she is. Consider it done." After Patricia left, James sat back in his chair and stared at the ceiling. What was he doing? He'd never gone to these lengths for a candidate before. Usually HR handled all of this. He just reviewed the final reports and made decisions. But something about this situation felt different. Important. The next morning, James arrived at the office earlier than usual. He tried to focus on work, but every hour he found himself checking his watch, waiting for Patricia to finish the background check. It was just after 2 in the afternoon when she knocked on his door. "Come in," James called out. Patricia entered carrying a thick folder. "I have the information you requested on Rachel Chen." James sat up straighter. "That was fast. The investigation firm prioritized it when I said it was for you." She placed the folder on his desk. "I also called all 5 references myself. Would you like me to summarize, or would you prefer to read it yourself?" "Summarize first, please." Patricia pulled out her notes. Rachel Chen, age 34. Bachelor's degree in business administration from State University. She graduated with honors, which is impressive considering she worked full-time while going to school. Married right after college to David Chen, who was a construction worker. They had 1 daughter, Lily, who's 9 years old. James nodded, already knowing most of this. Patricia continued. David Chen died 2 years ago in a workplace accident. There was a settlement from the construction company, but it wasn't much after legal fees and funeral costs. Rachel used most of it to pay off their debts and put some aside for her daughter's education. What about her work history? It's solid. Very solid, actually. She worked at Morrison & Associates for 6 years as an office manager. Her supervisor there, Linda Morrison, said she was one of the best employees they ever had. Organized, reliable, never missed a deadline. Linda said she was devastated when Rachel had to leave. Why did she leave? Patricia flipped a page. After her husband died, Rachel needed to work different hours to take care of her daughter. Morrison and Associates couldn't offer flexible scheduling, so she had to find something else. She's been working at 2 jobs since then: administrative work at a dental office during the day and waitressing 3 nights a week at Danny's Diner. What did her current employer say about her? Dr. Keller at the dental office said she's punctual, professional, and the patients love her. He said if he could afford to pay her more, he would, because he's afraid of losing her. The manager at Danny's Diner said she's the hardest worker he's ever had. Shows up on time, never complains, always willing to help other staff members. James leaned back, taking it all in. And her credit check? Patricia's expression became more sympathetic. She's struggling financially. She's current on all her bills, but just barely. Her rent takes up most of her income. She has about $3,000 in savings, probably the last of that settlement money. No credit card debt, which is actually impressive given her circumstances. She's clearly very careful with money. Anything negative? Anything at all? Nothing. Not even a parking ticket. Her record is completely clean. Patricia paused. If I may speak freely, sir? Please. This woman is exactly what she appears to be. A hard-working mother doing her best to provide for her child under very difficult circumstances. Every single person I spoke to had nothing but good things to say about her. And her credentials are legitimate. She's actually overqualified for the administrative position she's been working. James nodded slowly, processing all of this. Thank you, Patricia. This is very helpful. May I ask what this is about? Why the extra scrutiny? James considered how much to tell her. Something unusual happened yesterday. Something that made me want to look deeper. That's all. Patricia knew better than to push further. Will you be rescheduling her interview? Yes, but I want to do something first. James stood up and grabbed his jacket. I'm going out for a few hours. Cancel my afternoon appointments. Sir, you have a meeting with the board at 4. Reschedule it. This is more important. Patricia looked shocked. James never canceled board meetings. Never. But she simply nodded. As you wish. James drove to a part of the city he rarely visited, the financial district where all the banks had their headquarters. He parked and walked into First National Bank, heading straight for the office of Kenneth Wu, a senior vice president he'd worked with on several business deals. James Richardson, Kenneth said, standing up from behind his desk with a smile. This is unexpected. What brings you here? I need some financial advice, Ken. Personal advice, not business. Kenneth's smile faded into a more serious expression. Of course, sit down. What's going on? James sat and chose his words carefully. If someone wanted to help another person financially, someone who's struggling, what's the best way to do it without making them feel like charity? Kenneth leaned back, intrigued. That's an interesting question. Is this person an employee? Potentially. She's interviewing for a position at my company. I see. Well, there are several approaches. You could structure it as a signing bonus or as part of a benefits package. Educational assistance programs are also common and don't typically feel like handouts. James nodded, thinking. What about salary? If the position typically pays a certain amount but I wanted to offer more, would that raise red flags? Not if you can justify it. If she's overqualified for the position, or if you're adding additional responsibilities, a higher salary makes sense. Kenneth studied James with curiosity. This person must have made quite an impression on you. She did, or rather her daughter did. James spent another 20 minutes discussing options with Kenneth, taking notes and asking questions. When he finally left the bank, he had the beginnings of a plan forming in his mind. His next stop was an office building across town. He took the elevator to the 3rd floor and walked into the reception area of Henderson and Associates, an education consulting firm. I'd like to speak with someone about scholarship programs, James told the receptionist. An hour later, he left with several brochures and a much clearer understanding of how educational funds worked, what they could cover, and how to set one up. It was after 6 when James finally returned to his office. The building was quieter now, most employees having gone home for the day. Patricia was still at her desk, loyal as always. Did you get what you needed, sir? She asked. I did. Thank you for covering for me. Of course, she hesitated. Mr. Richardson, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but I haven't seen you this energized about something in a long time. James smiled. You're right. I haven't felt this way in years. It's strange. I thought I had everything figured out. But apparently I was missing something. What's that? Purpose. Real purpose. He headed toward his office, then turned back. Patricia, first thing tomorrow morning, I want you to call Rachel Chen. Tell her I'd like to reschedule her interview for next week. Monday, if she's available. I'll take care of it. That weekend, James did something he rarely did. He spent time thinking about someone other than himself. He reviewed Rachel's resume dozens of times. He made lists of what the job would require. He calculated numbers, structured offers, and planned out the conversation he would have with her. But more than that, he found himself thinking about Lily, that brave little girl who took 2 buses across the city because she couldn't bear to see her mother disappointed. What kind of life was that for a child? To worry about adult problems, to be afraid of disappointment, to have to be that strong at 9 years old. James thought about his own childhood. He hadn't grown up rich, not by any means. His father had been a factory worker, his mother a seamstress. They'd lived in a small house in a working-class neighborhood not that different from Riverside. He remembered his mother working late into the night on her sewing machine, making clothes for people in the neighborhood to earn extra money. He remembered his father coming home exhausted, his hands rough and scarred from the machinery. They'd scraped and saved to send James to college. He was the first in his family to get a degree. And he'd worked hard, so hard to make sure their sacrifices weren't wasted. He'd built his career step by step, moving up through the corporate world until he'd finally started his own company. But somewhere along the way, he'd forgotten what it felt like to struggle. He'd forgotten the fear of not having enough, the exhaustion of working multiple jobs, the weight of responsibility that pressed down on you every single day. Rachel and Lily had reminded him. They'd shown him a mirror he hadn't looked into for years. On Monday morning, James arrived at the office at 7:30. He'd barely slept, too busy going over everything in his mind. Patricia arrived at 8 and immediately came to his office. I spoke with Rachel Chen this morning, she reported. She's feeling much better. She sounded surprised but very grateful that you were willing to reschedule. I set up the interview for 10 o'clock as you requested. Perfect. Thank you. Is there anything else you need me to prepare? No. I'll handle this interview personally. At 9:45, James found himself pacing his office like a nervous teenager. This was ridiculous. He'd conducted hundreds of interviews in his career. He'd negotiated multi-million-dollar deals without breaking a sweat. Why was he so anxious about this one conversation? Because it matters, a voice in his head said. Because you're not just hiring an employee, you're trying to change someone's life. At exactly 10 o'clock, Patricia buzzed him. Mr. Richardson, Rachel Chen is here for her interview. James took a deep breath. Send her in. The door opened and Rachel walked in. She looked completely different from the sick, exhausted woman he'd met in her apartment. She wore a professional navy blue suit that was a bit worn but clean and pressed. Her hair was styled neatly. She'd put on makeup to cover the dark circles under her eyes. She carried a leather portfolio that had seen better days but was still presentable. But what struck James most was her expression. She looked nervous, yes, but also determined. There was steel in her eyes, the same determination he'd seen in her daughter. Mr. Richardson, Rachel said, extending her hand. Thank you so much for giving me this second chance. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. James shook her hand, noting the firm grip. Please sit down, and thank you for coming. How are you feeling? Much better, thank you. I'm so sorry about what happened last week. Lily shouldn't have gone to your office alone. I was horrified when I realized what she'd done. Actually, I'm glad she did, James said, surprising both of them with his honesty. She's an extraordinary young woman. You should be very proud. Rachel's face softened. I am. She's everything to me. I can see that. And she feels the same way about you. James gestured to the chair. But let's talk about you now. I've reviewed your resume in detail, and I have to say I'm impressed. Rachel sat down, placing her portfolio on her lap. Thank you. I've prepared extensively for this interview. I studied your company history, your mission statement, your recent projects. James held up a hand, gently interrupting. I'm sure you have. But before we get into all of that, I want to have a more honest conversation with you. Is that all right? Rachel looked confused but nodded. Of course. I'm going to be direct with you, Rachel. May I call you Rachel? Please do. Rachel, you're overqualified for this position, significantly overqualified. You should be managing an office, not assisting someone in managing one. So my first question is, Why are you applying for a job that's beneath your skill level? Rachel's carefully prepared smile faltered. For a moment, she seemed unsure how to answer. Then she seemed to make a decision, to be honest. Because I need flexibility, she said simply. And I need benefits. My current jobs pay the bills, but barely. And neither one offers health insurance or sick days or any kind of security. When I saw your posting mentioned flexible hours and full benefits, I didn't care that it wasn't a management position. I just saw an opportunity for something better. James nodded. This was the honesty he'd been hoping for. Tell me about your current situation. And please, be completely honest. This conversation stays between us. Rachel took a breath and then, slowly, she began to tell him everything. About how David's death had turned their world upside down. About selling their house and moving to a smaller apartment. About working 2 jobs and barely sleeping. About watching Lily grow up too fast. Taking on responsibilities no child should have to worry about. I'm tired, Rachel admitted, her voice cracking slightly. I'm so tired. But I can't stop, because if I stop, everything falls apart. And Lily deserves better than that. She deserves a childhood. She deserves to not worry about whether we can afford groceries or if the power will get shut off. James listened to every word, and with each sentence, his plan became clearer in his mind. This wasn't just about hiring an assistant anymore. This was about doing something that actually mattered. James sat quietly for a moment after Rachel finished speaking. The office felt different now, like the air itself had changed. This wasn't a corporate interview anymore. This was 2 human beings having a real conversation about life, struggle, and survival. Thank you for being honest with me, James said finally. I know that wasn't easy. Rachel wiped at her eyes quickly, embarrassed by the tears that had formed. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get emotional. That was unprofessional. No, James said firmly. That was human, and I appreciate it more than you know. He stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city. Can I tell you something, Rachel? Something I don't talk about very often? Of course, I grew up poor. Not struggling like you are now, but poor. My father worked in a factory for 40 years. My mother took in sewing to make extra money. We lived in a small house with thin walls and a roof that leaked when it rained hard. I wore hand-me-down clothes and worked part-time jobs from the time I was 14. Rachel listened, surprised. Looking at James now in his expensive suit and corner office, it was hard to imagine. My parents sacrificed everything to send me to college, James continued. I was the first person in my family to go, and I promised myself that I would make their sacrifices worth it. I would be successful. I would make money. I would never struggle like they did. He turned back to face Rachel. And I did all of that. I built this company from nothing. I made more money than my parents could have ever imagined. I bought a big house and expensive cars. I ate at fancy restaurants and traveled the world. That's impressive, Rachel said. You should be proud. I was proud. But somewhere along the way, I forgot something important. James walked back to his desk and sat down. I forgot what it felt like to actually need something. To worry about tomorrow. To have people depending on you. I got so caught up in success that I forgot what success was actually for. What do you mean? Success isn't just about making money or building something big. It's about what you do with it, how you use it, who you help with it. James looked directly at Rachel. Your daughter reminded me of that. When she walked into this office last week, she wasn't thinking about herself. She was thinking about you. She was brave and scared at the same time, but she came anyway because she loves you and she wanted to help. Rachel's tears came back, but she didn't wipe them away this time. She's a good girl. The best, she is. And you know what that tells me? It tells me that you're an excellent mother. Because children learn from their parents. Lily is kind and brave and loving because you taught her to be those things. I try my best. Your best is pretty remarkable. James picked up a folder from his desk. I'm going to be honest with you now, Rachel. I had you investigated. Rachel's eyes widened. Investigated. Yes, I wanted to know everything about you. Your work history, your education, your references, your financial situation. Everything. Rachel looked worried. I don't understand. Why would you need to investigate me? Because I wanted to be sure. I wanted to make certain that what I saw in that apartment last week was real, and not some kind of act. James opened the folder. And you know what I found? I found that everything Lily told me about you was true. Every single person I spoke to said you're one of the best employees they've ever had. You're reliable, honest, hardworking, and kind. You're exactly who you appear to be. Rachel didn't know what to say. I've always tried to do my job well. You've done more than well. You've been exceptional, despite circumstances that would break most people. James closed the folder and pushed it aside. So here's what I want to do. I want to offer you this job. Rachel's breath caught in her throat. Really? Really? But not as an executive assistant. Rachel's hope flickered with confusion. I don't understand. The executive assistant position pays $65,000 a year. That's good money, but it's not enough. Not for what you're worth and not for what you need. Mr. Richardson, I would be grateful for any... James held up his hand. Please let me finish. I'm creating a new position for you. Director of Operations. It's a management role that will involve overseeing multiple departments, coordinating projects, and working directly with me on company strategy. Rachel shook her head, overwhelmed. But I'm not qualified for that kind of position. I don't have that level of experience. Yes, you do. You've been managing complex situations and multiple priorities for years. You've worked 2 jobs simultaneously while raising a child alone. You've handled budgets and scheduling and crisis management. The only difference is that you've been doing it in your personal life instead of a corporate setting. But the skills are the same. I don't know what to say. The position pays $95,000 a year, James continued, plus full benefits, health insurance, dental, vision, retirement plan, 4 weeks of paid vacation, sick days, personal days, and flexible hours. If you need to leave early for Lily's school events or if she's sick, you can do that. We'll make it work. Rachel's hands were shaking. She gripped the arms of her chair to steady herself. $95,000? That's more than double what I make now. It's what the position is worth, and it's what you're worth. Mr. Richardson, I appreciate this so much, but I can't accept something I haven't earned. I couldn't live with myself if... Stop, James said gently but firmly. You have earned it. You've been earning it every single day for the past 2 years. Every night you worked at that diner after a full day at the dental office. Every morning you woke up exhausted but still got Lily ready for school. Every time you chose to put money in her college fund instead of buying something for yourself. You've been earning this through blood, sweat, and tears. Rachel put her face in her hands and began to cry. Really cry this time. Deep sobs that came from somewhere far inside, releasing years of stress and fear and exhaustion. James waited patiently, letting her have this moment. He pulled a box of tissues from his desk drawer and placed it within her reach. After a few minutes, Rachel composed herself enough to speak. I'm sorry. I'm such a mess right now. You're not a mess. You're human. And you're overwhelmed. That's completely understandable. Rachel took several tissues and wiped her face. Why are you doing this? You don't even know me. We only met once and I was sick and looked terrible. Why would you offer me so much? James thought about his answer carefully. Do you believe in signs, Rachel? Signs? Messages from the universe. Moments that happen for a reason. Rachel considered this. Maybe, I'm not sure. I've been successful for a long time, James said. But lately I've been feeling empty. Like something was missing. I couldn't figure out what it was. I had money, power, respect. I had everything I thought I wanted. But I'd wake up in my big empty house and wonder what it was all for. He leaned forward, his expression earnest. And then your daughter walked into my office. This little girl with a backpack and a wrinkled uniform, scared but trying to be brave. And she reminded me of something I'd forgotten. She reminded me that the best things in life aren't things at all. They're people, connections, the opportunity to actually make a difference in someone's life. You've already made a difference in ours, Rachel said softly. Not yet, but I'd like to try. James pulled out another document from